Hello everybody, and thanks very much for coming along today. For me, and probably due to Andrew a little bit, it's got me reminiscing quite a bit, and a lot of fun. So the folk from the New Zealand government sector, a big part of the initial story of Totara. As many will know, we were doing a lot of work with Moodle prior to that, and then as Andrew mentioned earlier, Inland Revenue was an early adopter. I think they were very committed to SAP at the time. They just wanted an interim solution just for 12 months or so. And the Leadership Development Centre, the State Services Commission, was quite a big project. And I think Mike O'Connor's in the room from Catalyst. He can probably remember how hard that was too, trying to push a square peg into a round hole, really, just really heavily customising Moodle to make that fit for purpose for that project. And of course the inevitable happened when it came to upgrading that site to the next version of Moodle, or actually in reality it was about 3 or 4 versions later. It really just wasn't practical to do that. You had to tear it down and start all over again from scratch. So that triggered the early thinking, and we're going back sort of 10 years ago, 2006, that we needed to productise some of those extensions, and that Moodle, fantastic tool that it is fit for purpose in the education environment, and in the workplace environment we needed to do something different. So that's how it really kicked off, and started here in Wellington with those experiences. And then also knowing, I guess, that to really do that, on a global scale, we needed Northern Hemisphere partners, and that's where we reached out to Kineo, etc. So thanks everybody for your part in that, and thanks Andrew for putting me down memory lane like that. It was good fun. So what I want to talk today about is where to, really, from here, and revisit as to some of the reasons why we take this approach. And I think, philosophically, I mean, everybody gets frustrated with software, all software, and Totara included, I'm sure, and it's the philosophical difference between, okay, I've just got to take it as it is, or I can actually change it. Now, what's the practical, in a real sense, you may not be able to. You might not have developers close at hand, or your budget might be tight and you might not be able to go to your Totara partner or what have you. And so, in essence, you're going, oh, well, actually, it's just like any other software. It's not, though, because the power dynamic in those relationships are quite different. If we are not innovating and being responsive to the community as fast as we possibly can, then our partners sure as hell will move ahead fast, or a particular customer will get customised so much that they'll then get frustrated when they go through to the next version. And I think that those differences in that dynamic, in that procurement dynamic, and that relationship is critically important with software. So I just want to revisit some of that with you. So particularly once you are on the wrong side of 50, this becomes so in your face when you just look around. So the world is absolutely accelerating, and just in the last few years while leading this company is incredible. So just some statistics, a few of these from KPMG's report last year. In the last 15 years, over half of Fortune 500 companies have disappeared. So that rate of attrition is really accelerating. And in the next 3 years, more critical than the previous 50. Nearly half of all global CEOs believe it is now or never to transform their business. And faced with that, then of course learning is central. Learning is absolutely critically important to being able to manage change. And there's a nice quote from Charles Darwin that sheets that home. It's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can best manage change. And unless you're always learning, then you've got no chance of doing that. So the philosophical underpinnings for us, and I guess one of the core principles, is that we can't do that on our own. It's fundamentally Totara Learning Solutions is a small business. We're about 50 strong now. But I would argue that success factors or Cornerstone or Saba or whoever, the ones with much bigger pockets than us, there's no way they can keep up. And in fact, with their business model, they're less likely to, because they want to monopolise the value chain around the innovation. So I'll just talk to that in a moment. So as things speed up, we need to collaborate more and more. And so we talk about collaborative economies. There's quite interesting reading around zebras versus unicorns. The unicorns are trying to monopolise, and they're the ones that the venture capital goes after, and and it's all about, for example, Uber or Facebook, etc. And then there's this counter-business culture emerging around where you want more collaborative networks that are sustainable. And I think actually it's really palpable today just how much of you collaborate here and the benefits, and with some examples of that around the earthquakes. Fantastic. Imagine trying to do it all on your own. As a learning technologies customer, you're not just a consumer, and I think too many of our competitors simply treat you as one. You're a creator, producer, problem solver, innovator, and that innovation at every step of the value chain is really important, both, as I was saying before, with that dynamic of, I guess, keeping us focused, keeping us honest, but also enabling all that innovation around it at the edges. So our mission is to enable freedom to adapt in an ever-changing world. And we've encapsulated that with our strapline, freedom to learn. And what those freedoms mean, what they mean to us, is freedom to innovate, freedom to select your service provider, freedom to define your future, your technology future. So you'll never see 5-year contracts from Totara Learning. You may want one with your partner, that's up to you, but we don't force any lock-in. We don't force you to upgrade. I'm pleased everybody here is at least, I think the minimum was 2.6, wasn't it? Absolutely. Well done, everybody, because we do have believe it or not, we have some 1.1s around the world. And to deploy how and where you want to. Now, I find this an interesting one because it's cloud, cloud, cloud these days, and you're nowhere unless you're in the cloud. Well, the reality is, sort of 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, everybody was talking about service-oriented architectures and being able to swap components of your stack, etc. You don't hear any of that anymore because everything's in the cloud and it'll be magically upgraded for you. But it's the new age of lock-in. If you choose poorly and you don't think about your exit strategy, not just your procurement, your initial procurement, but how do I get out of this? You always need to think about that with software. And a lot of those cloud offerings these days, really easy to get in, but incredibly hard to get out. There's no interoperability standards around LMS data. It's very fractured. Freedom to extend and adapt to business needs. That's a little bit different from freedom to innovate. And again, I think it goes to the practices of some vendors that really just want to sell into their stack. So it'll play really nicely as long as it comes from them. What we want to do is have platforms that'll play nicely with any type of software, and you do that through open APIs, so application programming interfaces, if anybody doesn't know that term. So just unpacking that a little bit further, that freedom to innovate, that importance of versatility, I think that's borne out by the breadth and of customers that use Totara now, and from small and medium-sized businesses right through to huge multinational organisations with well over 200,000 learners on their systems. So just in some of the sectors there, unfortunately we can't get a case study out of Google, but they're there, Google, Samsung, Sony, etc. Government, of course, lots of good representation here, but also around the world, the UK Houses of Parliament, upper and lower case, houses I should say. Local government, huge in the UK. It's actually the majority of city and district councils, county councils in the UK use Totara now. Healthcare, I mean, I think we've got quite a few DHBs here today, but also in Canada, Australia, we've got Eastern Health here today from Victoria, and the NHS in the UK very strong as well. Keeps going. NGOs, some fantastic NGOs. I think we're hearing around the UNICEF project this afternoon, but also Médecins Sans Frontières, Amnesty International, Greenpeace, etc. Large retail, and all for different sort of reasons, and they can shape and bend Totara to be fit for purpose for those environments. So that underlying flexibility is a core attribute, I think, of a modular open framework. Freedom to select your service provider. Now, the analogy sometimes I use on this is when your car breaks down, and that's just sort of close to home at the moment because mine's in the garage. But imagine if you couldn't choose your mechanic and you always had to take your car back to one single provider if anything went wrong with it. Would they necessarily provide you with the best service? If you look around how software is normally sold, then that's the problem that you face. There's nowhere else you can go. With Totara, you've got we've got 85 partners currently across 35 countries, and it means that all those niche environments, and that actually you're getting listened to, because if you're not being listened to, then certainly another Totara partner will be happy to talk to you. And so that customer choice and that marketplace of solution providers ensures that you're being delivered value, not just from the software. Freedom to define your technology future, and this I touched on earlier around cloud versus on-premise or dedicated hosting or shared. That depends on your choices around data security or what you want to do with that. And start with one and move to the other. With Totara Cloud Services, actually that's more often than not a feeder. I think New Zealand Post here today. NZ Post started off on Totara Cloud and then went with a Totara partner. So these are the key freedoms. Freedom to extend the innovation network, and this is a real dynamic that most of the innovation in many ways, fundamentally we're an R&D company. We don't do deployments, we don't do consulting, we don't do customizations. the team and most of the R&D team are here in Wellington. We're doing research and development, and we do marketing support marketing support of our partners. But actually, a lot of that innovation, and certainly the innovative thinking, is happening amongst our customer base, and what they are asking the partners, and then the partners are going, well, actually, should this be customised, or should we write a plugin for this? And if we write a plugin for this, actually, this has only come up once or twice. Should we try and get this into core, or should we see if the community has wider need for this and other customers? So we've got this engine room of innovation happening out there, which means that we move a whole lot faster than we would do if we were a traditional proprietary software company. Some key statistics. So launching in March 2011, we've now got over 1,100 organisations globally that represents 8 million users, 47 countries and 25 languages, 85 partners, and thankfully we are getting a lot of case studies. Thank you to the people in the room who have contributed to those success stories. That's really important for us. We're not like other vendors in that we don't have really deep pockets to spend on big advertising campaigns, etc. So the way we try and spread the word is through just sharing what people are doing. So if you've got a story to share, we would very much like to get that from you. The customer base breakdown is actually quite similar when we look at some of the competitors in terms of true enterprise software. Of course, at the very top end, that's going to be lesser numbers, but we have, I think it's 12 now, actually at the 250,000 users. And for a guy that grew up in Christchurch, that was a bit mind-boggling initially when starting this company, that there were how many companies out there actually employ numbers like that, and keeps Simon and his team honest around scalability. When we talk about sweet spots though, and we often get this question asked by analysts, oh really? Sorry. Okay, I better get on to what's happening next. Okay. Anyway, that's about us. That's where we are. There we go. So, so look, we're renaming Totara LMS to Totara Learn, and the reason why we're doing that is we're really focusing on the people development side and fundamentally in LMS. Flexible for all those different things there. You can get these slides. I do want, because social has been mentioned, enterprise social networks, Totara Social, we're going to be building that team out a bit and going a bit faster in that area. As time has come really, but I think also we haven't taken on venture capital or anything else. We're a bootstrapped company, and it's just getting the opportunity to do more in areas that we think are important. So Totara Social, there'll be Totara 3.0s coming out anytime soon, within the next month or so, and then an exciting roadmap going forward with Totara Social. I do want to whip through these because I want to take any questions if anybody's got some. Totara Perform. Now this, at the moment, we've got a performance management module in the LMS, and part of that is going to stay in the LMS, and actually it's a little bit raw. I put my hand up. We're going to be doing more within that. This is around your annual appraisals, or however often you do it, 360 reviews, those types of things. And that methodology, I guess, for performance management isn't going to go away for a lot of organisations. It's often tied to your remuneration review, etc. But there's using social networking tools, there's an exciting new trend around continuous performance management, objectives, key results, having regular check-ins and using the social tools to feed information, the peer-to-peer recognition, badges, etc. And really good to hear the badges story. So to be feeding that in, so that actually it's not a painful exercise, nobody enjoys it. We've just been going through it ourselves recently, and it's not fun for the manager either, believe me. So to have that rich information flowing through, and this will be a layer built out on top of the social bit feeding through to the reporting engine as well. Totara Analytics, just to manage expectations on that, that's a little bit further out, 2018 most likely. We're in the research phase around that, and just we could move faster than that, I guess, but there's quite a lot to understand as to the whys and how you really add value. But this will end up giving us sort of four different products. So just recapping on our vision, we want to unlock value, we're very focused on changing the way learning technologies are procured, away from lock-in towards freedom and value, enabling innovation through having a modular, flexible, adaptable, extensible, and having multiple suppliers through a collaborative economy. So having that partner ecosystem and that mass specialisation, so that innovation, that last 5% that causes, the 80-20 rule, it's the small bits that really add value, or conversely really annoy you. So enabling you to address those. That's what we're about. So thank you.